Welcome new Dukes, not just first years, but transfers too. We are so excited to be part of your orientation to James Madison University. We hope that your first day as a Duke has been an amazing one. We want to officially welcome you to We Are JMU, a discussion about diversity, inclusion, and privilege. My name is Siobhan Moore, and I use she, her pronouns. And I work in the Center for Multicultural Student Services, or CMS. I'm excited to be one of your facilitators today, and you'll meet everyone as we move throughout this time together. To start, we have a message from Dr. Tim Miller, the Vice President of Student Affairs.
Welcome home, JMU. My name is Dr. Tim Miller, and I'm the Vice President of Student Affairs here. I'm also a double Duke, and I couldn't be happier to be back on campus serving this amazing community. Whether you're entering as a first-year student or a transfer student, I want you to feel welcome here on campus and find how you belong. Each of us comes to JMU with our own diversity and individuality, and I want that to shine through while you're on this campus. Also, I expect and we expect that each of you will be open to the diversity that everyone else brings. You're going to experience things and people that you've never experienced before in your lives, views that you disagree with, and in this type of civil society on this campus, we expect you'll have good discussions about that and be open to learning about things that you've never experienced before. That's the JMU way, and that's what we want from you as you enter this community and as you go into life after JMU. The Center for Multicultural Student Services here will be here all the time to help you learn from yourselves and from others, and learn to be open to all things in the world and on this campus. Thank you very much for coming to JMU. Welcome home, and go Dukes.
Dr. Tim Miller stated that each of us comes to JMU with our own diversity and individuality. And I want that to shine through while you're on this campus. Also, I expect and we expect that each of you will be open to the diversity that everyone else brings. As you can see, diversity and inclusion is very important here. Not just important to our Vice President of Student Affairs, but it's also important to all of us as an entire institution. Diversity is something that you may or may not have heard of before, but today we want to talk not just about diversity, but inclusion and how we can all work together, using our different experiences and identities to make our campus inclusive for everyone. It's okay if this is new information or a new way to talk about diversity. This is an opportunity for all of us to learn together. We want to remind everyone that we might not all agree on everything today. However, we don't want this to be a space for arguments. This is a space for constructive conversations to learn about a perspective that might be different from your own. With that being said, we would also like to take a moment to talk about what the takeaways will be for today's session. We want you all to be able to take away defining diversity, inclusion, and privilege, differentiate between shallow and deep diversity, and be able to identify campus resources for diversity and inclusion. Our community pacts we would like to go over with you as well. For you and your fellow Dukes to get the most out of our time together, we created a community pact that I will walk us through. We're asking everyone to adhere to the following. Be fully engaged with the dialogue. This means off of any technology that may distract you from the session today. Treat others with dignity, care, and respect. Challenge yourself to explore multiple perspectives. We want you to remain open-minded and be willing to learn something new. Learn and lean into discomfort. Some of this information may make you uncomfortable. Instead of becoming defensive or shutting down, take some time to think through why you are feeling the way that you do. Ask clarifying questions and seek understanding. At the end of today's session, we are going to offer you some wonderful resources that will allow you to receive the clarification and understanding you may be looking for. Finally, be aware of intent versus impact. While you or someone around you may have something that was intended to be respectful, it doesn't mean that it won't have a negative impact. We encourage you to be thoughtful and sincere if you need to apologize for your intent not having the impact that you meant it to have. I'm going to now pass it along to my colleague, DeAndre Powell.
Hi Dukes, my name is DeAndre Powell and I use he, him, his pronouns, and I also work in CMS. We want to remind you of some definitions for you to refer to as we go along. We plan on diving into these terms throughout the session, and we encourage you to utilize them so that we can have a common language in this conversation. To start off, let's open up with a conversation with some other Dukes at JMU to hear about what diversity means to them.
Diversity is having people from different cultures and different backgrounds and different races just coming together and working towards a common goal.
I think diversity is about celebrating each other's differences and coming together and figuring out how every one of us is special in each our own way.
Diversity is much more than whether you're black or white or Hispanic or Asian. To me, it's also whether you're gay or whether you're straight or whether you're from Northern Virginia or Southern Virginia. It's much more than skin color for me.
Diversity is just a bunch of different people all together.
Diversity is something that all of us hold, whether it's our gender, whether it's our race, our culture, our traditions, our orientation. It's something that all of us hold. When it comes specifically to ethnicity, I feel like all of us are a part of that diversity in that all of us are international, and that even if you're an American, for students coming into JMU who are from other countries, we hold that sense of diversity. So that's what diversity is too.
I think diversity is anything that makes you think differently from another person.
To me, diversity is a lot more than the way people look, but definitely the way people interpret the world around them and how open they are to ideas.
Diversity is this.
Diversity is, I think, it's like different backgrounds, what makes you you, like your values, your morals. It's just bringing really different people all together at once.
A lot of people see it more than just race. People think like maybe where you've been, where you've lived, or like different things that you like to do, different things that you're interested in. I think it's just differences in every type of way.
Diversity is multidimensional variance within a given society.
Diversity is culture.
Diversity to me, I think people get hung up too much on like ethnicity. I think diversity is any particular story that we come from, any story that any background that anybody has, just coming together and becoming a new community, especially here at like JMU. It's a bunch of different people all in one great place.
Loving everybody else's identity as well.
Diversity is when you just have a group of people together and they all come from different walks of life. To me, that's diversity.
Diversity is what makes you you, whether that be an aspect of where you come from, your economic background, your sexual identity, the different things that make you stand out from the person next to you or whoever else is in the community is what diversity is.
Diversity!
Diversity is a combination of many cultures in one setting.
Different cultures coming together and
not necessarily race, but
no,
also just cultural experiences and
existing together
and appreciating each other while at the same time maintaining differences and growing.
Growing in an educational environment, I guess.
Absolutely. Short people and tall people. Get it along.
Diversity.
Diversity.
Diversity is about different people coming together and learning from one another.
Diversity to me means everybody coming together as a human race, accepting everybody for who they are, and really celebrating our differences because we are who we are, and everyone should accept who we are for who we are.
So as you can see, diversity is something that JMU students value. For this video, the videographer walked around campus and got raw footage of the perspective of our students on the topic of diversity. As you can see, there are various views represented here at JMU. Now, a definition that we like to use for diversity is the differences that exist between people's social identities. Some of the students in the video talked about shallow differences, and some talked about deep differences. Both are important to consider when thinking about the JMU community, but we want to make sure that you understand there are differences between the two. Shallow differences refer to differences in people's personalities, hobbies, or includes things like their favorite color, their major, or sports that they play. These kinds of topics are common to talk about when you're first getting to know someone. Deep diversity has more to do with a person's social identities and includes things like race, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, class, just to name a few. Deep diversity generally isn't something that we dive into when we're talking to someone that we've just met. It's more challenging to talk about because our identities are more personal and have a bigger impact on our lives than the aspects of shallow diversity. Now, let's pause for a moment and reflect. Think about describing yourself to a friend. What aspects do you share? Are they shallow differences or deep diversity? As we said earlier, both shallow differences and deep diversity work together to make the JMU community vibrant and unique. We hope that you continue to meet your classmates throughout this next week and throughout your time at JMU, and that you'll get to know them with both of these things in mind. Now that we know a little bit more about diversity, let's talk through a few more terms that will be helpful at your time at JMU. Now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Cynthia Ruff.
Hi, Dukes. My name is Cynthia Ruff. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I work in the Center for Multicultural Student Services, also known as CMS. I'm going to talk through a few more terms with you. As we think about shallow differences and deep diversity, we start talking about social identities. Social identities are identities that are based on the physical, social, and mental characteristics of individuals. These are sorted into in-groups and out-groups. Some social identities include race, age, gender identity and expression, ethnicity, ability status, religion, sexual orientation, body size, and socioeconomic status. So let's pause for a moment. What social identities do you think about the most, and which ones do you think about the least? The next term we wanted to talk about today is inclusion. So inclusion is the active, intentional, and ongoing engagement with diversity. This includes authentically bringing traditionally excluded individuals and or groups into processes, activities, and decision and policy making in a way that shares power and recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of all people. Diversity, inclusion, and social identities are all surrounded by this concept of privilege. So privilege is the unearned advantages, favors, and benefits that members of a dominant group receive at the expense of members of the target groups. When we think about what social identities have privilege in our society, we think about the following: white people, able-bodied people, heterosexual people, cisgender people, male people, Christian, middle or owning class people, middle-aged people, and English-speaking people. We are going to learn more about why privilege is important to be aware of in this next video.
I once saw a high school teacher lead a simple, powerful exercise to teach his class about privilege and social mobility. He started by giving each student a scrap piece of paper and asked them to crumple it up. Then he moved the recycling bin to the front of the room. He said, "The game is simple. You all represent the country's population, and everyone in the country has a chance to become wealthy and move into the upper class. To move into the upper class, all you must do is throw your wadded up paper into the bin while sitting in your seat. the students in the back of the room immediately piped up saying, "This is unfair." They could see the rows of students in front of them had a much better chance. Everyone took their shots and, as expected, most of the students in the front made it, but not all, and only a few students in the back of the room made it. He concluded by saying, "The closer you were to the recycling bin, the better your odds." This is what privilege looks like. Did you notice how the only ones who complained about fairness were in the back of the room? By contrast, people in the front of the room were less likely to be aware of the privilege they were born into. All they can see is 10 feet between them and their goal. Your job as students who are receiving an education is to be aware of your privilege and use this particular privilege called education to do your best to achieve great things, all the while advocating for those in the rows behind you.
There are a few things this video mentioned that we want to highlight here to help you better understand how privilege works. Privilege can look many different ways, including having less barriers between you and your goals, like the students that are positioned closer to their goal of throwing their paper in the basket. Usually, people with privilege, so those in the front of the room, have trouble realizing that others don't have privilege, like those who couldn't see behind them. Once you do have awareness of your privilege, though, you can use that to advocate and help others. So for example, the students that were in the front could have moved to let other students get closer to the basket. Essentially, privilege helps open doors to you that you didn't realize were there. So with that being said, let's pause again with another reflection question. What are some examples of the privileges that you hold? I am now going to pass it to my colleague, Jennifer Iwerks.
Hi Dukes, my name is Jennifer Iwerks. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I work in SOGI programming. Before we continue, we want to highlight some places on campus where you can engage to learn more about diversity and inclusion. There are many ways to get engaged with diversity here at James Madison University. These are just a few of our resources, so be on the lookout for these and other opportunities this year to get involved. First, the Center for Multicultural Student Services provides educational and celebratory programs and services that support an inclusive campus community in which members value diversity within themselves and others. CMUS houses over 33 organizations that are all pointing to their mission in the areas of culturally based service sororities and fraternities, religion, academics, and civic engagement. CMUS also houses the Diversity Education Empowerment Program, or Deep Impact, which celebrates all aspects of identity and diversity through cultural series that features speakers and films, custom outreach diversity training for clubs, organizations, or classes, and diversity dialogues, which happen twice a month and give students a chance to learn about and discuss issues such as mass incarceration, toxic masculinity, and the colonization of hip-hop. Interested in getting involved? Stop by a dialogue or consider enrolling in the Deep Impact class on Social Justice and Dialogue Facilitation, which is HRD 123. CMUS also houses the Intercultural Greek Council that oversees the 13 fraternity and sororities that are culturally and service-based. This includes historically Black, Latinx, and Asian interest organizations, but are not exclusive to these. These organizations are social, but were built on the foundation of service. The annual Dr. Martin Luther King celebration is sponsored by CMUS and includes events that reflect upon the life and legacy of Dr. King. These events offer a time for the JMU community to reflect upon injustices during the civil rights era and today. Next is the Center for Global Engagement. The Center for Global Engagement, also called CGE, is committed to the principle that international experiences and perspectives are essential to any undergraduate and graduate education. To that end, CGE promotes and encourages a critical awareness of world issues, a knowledge of and appreciation for other cultures, languages, and belief systems, a sense of global community, and a commitment to engage at the international level in order to educate active and responsible global citizens. Next, the Office of Disability Services is a significant resource for registered students with disabilities who need accommodations and provides the opportunity to access issues on campus. Additionally, it houses Service Learning Instruction, otherwise known as LSI, which is a free academic coaching service for any JMU student. You do not have to be registered with ODS to use this. This is for students who would like to focus on topics like time management and study skills. Disability Awareness Week is hosted every spring semester by ODS in collaboration with many community and campus partners. This week includes a variety of events, exhibits, and speakers to raise awareness, knowledge, skills, and actions necessary to become a more inclusive community that values the richness of all individuals and perspectives. It also aims to engage members of the community in conversations about disability, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. The Counseling Center provides clinical services, including individual and group therapy programs to approximately 2,000 undergraduate and graduate students at JMU. The Counseling Center provides a safe, supportive, and comfortable environment which empowers students to develop the awareness and skills they need to meet challenges and lead meaningful lives. The Counseling Center clinicians are committed to serving all JMU students and are trained to work with the unique concerns of sexual trauma survivors, international students, military-connected students, LGBTQIA+ students, and underserved domestic students. Finally, we have SOGI programming. SOGI, which stands for Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, and Expression, is an office dedicated to students' safe and comfortable expression of LGBTQ+ identities on campus. Queer students and their allies have a safe space to relax in the Lavender Lounge, located in the Student Success Center. With computers and printers to get work done, a gender expression closet to find a new look, and a library full of books, the space is truly multi-purpose. The lounge is also home to resources on LGBTQ+ identities, allyship, the coming out process, and SOGI staff and volunteers are happy to talk with students about how they identify and what they need to be their happiest, most successful self at JMU. Every month, this space is home to events like Puppy Pride, a self-care focused collaboration with the Counseling Center, and Queers and Coffee, a social hour planned and hosted by student volunteers. SOGI's peer educators are responsible for hosting out-on-campus dialogues and facilitating LGBTQ+ educational opportunities on campus. These educators participate in larger events as well as work across campus to facilitate dialogues about how to be LGBTQ+ inclusive in education, healthcare, and more. To learn more, visit SOGI programming online by searching JMU SOGI, visit the Student Success Center room 1310, or by following SOGI programming on Instagram and Facebook at jmu.sogi. Please follow all of these departments on Instagram for events and additional resources from them. We've also included the QR codes here for you to follow each of our accounts easily. I'm now going to pass it on to Rebecca Barge to end our time together.
Hi Dukes, my name is Rebecca Barge. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I work in the Center for Multicultural Student Services. Welcome. As we wrap up today, let's go back to the idea that we can use our privilege to help others. Here's one more video to demonstrate this.
My sister-in-law, who's half black, half white, but looks white, blue eyes, whiter than most white folks, very white. She and I, we kind of grew up together. We raised our children together. So they're first cousins, and it's a wonderful, very, very multicultural family. So we're going in a Safeway one day. And Kathleen, my sister-in-law, is in front of me, and she's, writing a check for her groceries. Now, my daughter, who at the time was 10 years old, was standing with me, and I was directly behind her, getting ready to get my groceries. So Kathleen comes up, and the checker, who is a strawberry blonde, freckled, very delightful, warm, the checker, this young woman, is talking to Kathleen. Hey, how you doing? Isn't it a nice day today? They're just chatting up, and says, yeah. So Kathy writes her check, and she steps off to the side with her groceries because she's waiting for me. Of course, again, Kathleen looks white, right? So I come up. No conversation. She looks up at me. Absolutely no, just little chatter. And I write my check. My daughter, however, is 10, notices immediately the difference in how she responds to me. So I write my check, and she goes, I'm going to need 2 pieces of ID. At which point my daughter looks at me, and she gets very, very embarrassed, and tears are kind of coming up in her eye, like, Mommy, you're not gonna let her do this. Why is she doing this to us, right? So I'm trying to figure out what I should do, because behind me are 2 elderly white women, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so then I become the angry black woman, right? And they're gonna be, and I'm just trying to second guess all the drama. So then I just give her the 2 pieces of ID. I said, some things you gotta choose your battles, right? And then it gets worse. She pulls out the bad check book, right? So this is the book that shows the people who have written bad checks. So she starts searching for my license in the bad checks, at which point it's just out of control now. Just as I'm standing there trying to decide what to do, and it's really deeply humiliating. Now my daughter is in full-blown emotionally upset, who's 10. My sister-in-law walks back over. And she steps in and she says, excuse me, why are you doing this? And the checker goes, well, what do you mean? She goes, why are you taking her through all of these changes? Why are you doing that? She goes, well, this is our policy. She goes, no, it's not your policy because you didn't do that with me. Oh, well, I know you've been. She goes, no, she's been here for years. I've only lived here for 3 months. And so at this point, the 2 white elderly ladies go, oh, I can't believe what this checker has done with this woman. It is totally unacceptable. At which point the manager walks over. So the manager walks over and says, is there a problem here? And then my sister-in-law again responds. She goes, yes, there is a problem here. Here is what happened. So you see, she used her white privilege. And even though Kathleen is half black and half white, she recognizes what that means. And she made the statement. She pointed out the injustice. And she, as a result of that one act, influenced everyone in that space. But what would have happened? I can't know for certain had the black woman said, this is unfair. Why are you doing this to me? Would it have had the same impact? But Kathleen knew that she walked through the world differently than I did. And she used her white privilege to educate and make right a situation that was wrong. That's what you can do every single day.
As we mentioned before, privilege helps open doors that we didn't realize were there. For others that don't have the same privileges you do, they may have a locked door. You may have heard that Dukes open doors for each other. That's something that happens here. And we encourage you to also hold open the doors that your privilege has opened for you, so that others can join you in the spaces that you are in. We're asking that today you make a commitment to promote inclusion at JMU. Some examples of this might be listening with intent to learn from others, being open to new conversations about our identities, thinking twice when you make an assumption about someone, making sure that people that might be different than you feel comfortable in the spaces that you're in. And add your own as you think about these examples. Let's pause with another reflection question. What's one way you will hold open doors for Dukes at JMU? How will you use your privilege to open doors to promote inclusion? Thank you for listening and engaging with us today. Our hope is that we have planted a seed that can grow throughout your time here at JMU. If you would like to continue these conversations about privilege and opening doors, join us for the next few days at 1 p.m. during Choose Your Own Adventure on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. We will be holding virtual open forums for you to engage with other staff and with students. And if you would like more information about this event, check your guidebook. Additionally, join us for the first Deep Impact Dialogue that will take place on September 9th. And lastly, as we wrap up here today, we want to thank you for participating and for engaging with us. Please click on this QR code to complete a survey and let us know your feedback of what you've learned here today. Thank you, everyone. Go Dukes.